And welcome to another edition of the Basic Thoughtonomics podcast. I'm your host, Chris Grosso, and very much looking forward to having this guest on with the MLB postseason coming up. He covers the Yankees for MLB.com. He is the great Bryan Hoch. And Bryan, thanks so much for coming on the podcast today. How's everything going?
You got it. Thank you for having me, Chris.
Yeah, no doubt. Looking forward to this. Just wanted to first get your thoughts on this season, covering this unprecedented season. What was that like, not being able to be in the clubhouse, be around the players, not being on the road? Just what was that whole experience like?
Yeah, it was bizarre. Because normally my work day is it starts around 3:00, and we're down in the clubhouse, and you have that face-to-face interaction with players, and instead we were pretty much confined to doing everything off Zoom. And so, I did travel a little bit with the team, but while it's good to see the games in person, I feel like you get a better feel for the game than what you see on TV.
Right.
You're really lacking something without the ability to kind of just go to a player and kind of talk a little bit in a less formal setting. Everything transpired over Zoom, and it was kind of a press conference, the way we do during the postseason, where the player is sitting at the microphone, and then it's a very formal, it's your turn to ask a question. All right, now another person asks a question. It's kind of tough to get a conversation going in that way. There's certainly no one-on-one interaction. So I think we did the best we could with it, but I certainly hope it's something we never have to do again. And I think where you really saw it lacking was with the no fans.
I think that so much.
That was tough. That was tough for I think everybody, for the players, for us. But really, I think there was just a certain energy that was lacking because you don't have that. And, Aaron Hicks was talking about that yesterday and said that was the toughest part for him is you have to self-motivate every single day. And the guys showed up, and, there are some days where you're dragging, you're beat up, you don't really want to get out there, or maybe, you've got something going on at home, and the fans are what pushes you to that next level to rev it up. And without them there, I think it was tough for a lot of guys.
Oh, no doubt. I know for me, just watching, it was tough because, like you said, the players just feed off that energy so much. And you said it best. Hopefully, this is just a one-time thing for this season. Hopefully by next year, we could get fans back in the seats, just kind of resume a normal life in a sense. And wanted to get into the Yankees here. It's been a very streaky season, as you know, a lot of ups and downs. Going to the playoffs, losing 6 of 8 here. Just what's your thoughts on this team heading into this bizarre, unique, unprecedented kind of postseason format?
Yeah, 2020 has just been a turbulent year in every regard. So I guess the fact that they're one of the streakiest Yankee teams I can remember, maybe we shouldn't be surprised by that. But yeah, they came out of the gate red hot. They looked like the team that we all thought they were going to be. They were 16-6. Then they went 5-15. Then they won 10 in a row, and then they struggled, as you mentioned, at the end. So I think that they've got the talent on paper. There's a reason that we all talk about this team as a World Series caliber contender all the way back in January and February and the before times, before COVID messed everything up. But I think that on paper they look fine, and they're healthy again. So I won't be shocked. Yeah, I guess I won't be shocked either way, just because they've been so kind of frenetic and hot and cold all year. I wouldn't be shocked if they go into the postseason and run the table, and I guess I wouldn't be shocked if they get bounced in the first round either, because especially in a best of 3, I almost feel like that's a coin flip and anything can happen.
Yeah, that's the next thing I wanted to bring up. Best of 3, I think that's personally myself, that's crazy to do in baseball, but how do you go about breaking that down, a 3-game series? Because I feel like anything could happen in a 3-game series. The Pirates could beat the Dodgers 2 out of 3. The Red Sox could beat the Rays 2 out of 3. Just for this series in particular, what are you looking for? How do you go about analyzing this?
Well, I think that, look, as far as the Yankees and Indians go, the key for the Yankees will be to break through against that pitching staff. With Shane Bieber, who won the pitching Cy Young, I think that's going to be fantastic showdown tomorrow night between Bieber and Cole. It's going to be so much fun to watch. I think runs are going to be at a premium. So if they can run up that pitch count and score a couple runs, they don't have to it doesn't have to be like that series where they were, beating up the Blue Jays and hitting 10 home runs and all that. But I think that if you look at Cleveland's offense, I think I saw this yesterday, 25 times they were held to 3 runs or less this year. And so that offense is not fantastic.
No.
Jose Ramirez is probably in the AL MVP conversation, but other than that, they're not going to score a ton of runs off the Yankees pitching staff, or at least they shouldn't. So if the Yankees can break through and get Bieber out of the game and get into that bullpen, I think they got a good shot.
Just want to talk Yankee offense a little bit. They've kind of sputtered here down the stretch. I know you kind of said it's a kind of a clean slate now going into the postseason. But what do you make of the Yankees offense? It's really not that much producing right now. I mean, DJ LeMahieu, obviously MVP candidate. He just continues to rake. Luke Voit, I mean, he has more homers this year than he had all of last year. And I think that's just a testament to how great of a season he's had. And Gio Urshela, they're pretty much the only guys hitting in this lineup right now. Just what do you think of the Yankees offense? You think they're kind of just going to have the mindset like a clean slate now? Like, it doesn't matter what we did, just trying to, start fresh here?
Well, especially for a guy like Gary Sanchez, a clean slate would be the best thing that could happen for him. But I think what you've seen is Judge and Stanton have been a little slow coming back from their injuries. I thought that was to be expected, considering there were no minor league games for them to rehab in to get their timing back. And so you can work out at the alternate site and stuff and face hitters and face pitchers and get live at bats, but until you're actually in game competition facing guys who are going full bore and not just the same 2 or 3 pitchers every day, I think that it's tough to get that to lock that back in. So you started to see some good signs from Stanton on that last homestand for the Yankees. Judge, it's been soft contact so far, and I do wonder if he's all the way back.
Right.
But if there was ever a time to flip the switch and get it going, this is the time for him. And so, yeah, you mentioned LeMahieu and Voit. They have carried this team. And, Aaron Boone said it the other day. He said, without those 2 guys, we are not getting on a plane and going to Cleveland. So they are, in my mind, the 1 and 2 MVP of the Yankee team. And Urshela's had a nice season again. I think that you're seeing that's not a fluke. But for them to go all the way, I don't think they can do it without Judge and Stanton picking it up.
Definitely. I agree with that. I think David Cone made a good point on the broadcast the other day, just saying how Judge, he's like the most important guy on that team. It's the whole team kind of feeds off him, feeds off his energy, especially when he's hitting. Just like, I feel like hitting's contagious in that regard. I think Judge is the most important guy to kind of pick things up here. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would. And we just haven't seen a whole lot of impact. He hasn't really been driving the ball with power ever since coming back from the ILs, which is why I say I wonder if he's all the way back. But even if he's not, this is the time. Like, there's no tomorrow, really, especially when you're in a best-of-3 series. So they're going to need him to be that guy. There's a reason that Boone has been hitting him second. They think he's the best hitter in that lineup. And, I think that they are counting on the fact that Aaron Judge can come back and be Aaron Judge, because we saw it in the early days when they got off that 16-6 start. He was crushing the ball. I think he had 9 homers very early. And so they need that guy back.
No doubt. Yeah, hasn't hit a home run since coming off the IL. You alluded to it a little earlier, Gary Sanchez, and just what a nightmare season. There's so many superlatives you could kind of come up with just this season. And I just want to get your thoughts on this. This has been 2 seasons in a row now where Sanchez has struggled mightily, batting 147. That's obviously unacceptable. He's hit into some tough luck. He's had, I think, 16 hits over 100 miles an hour that have been outs. But do you think, and this might sound extreme, but if he doesn't have a good postseason, do you think the Yankees might have to start looking for another regular everyday catcher, whether it's inside the organization or outside the organization?
I think what you're seeing is their confidence has been shaken. And that's the reason you're seeing Boone talk about the fact that Kyle Higashioka is going to start in the postseason. I'm expecting that he will catch Garrett Cole on Tuesday night, and maybe Higashioka catches even more than that. It was just a month ago that Brian Cashman said that Gary Sanchez is our best option on both sides of the ball by far. And I'm not hearing that anymore from the Yankees. And so It's funny. You look at the old school back of the baseball card stats, and you say, as you said, he's hitting 147, 10 homers. This guy is not good. And then you look at the advanced analytics, like you were talking about with the hard hit ball percentage and everything, and it's kind of like, well, he's just hitting into bad luck, and he actually is good. And so is it possible that both sides are right with Gary Sanchez? That's the weird thing with him. It's such a mystery because, yeah, he should be hitting better, but the back of the baseball card said he's not. And how long can you go with a guy who's just not producing? And I think that's what Boone said in his press conference about 3 days ago. He said, at some point, performance matters. And so that was really the first time that I've heard the Yankees kind of acknowledge the idea that maybe Gary Sanchez is not their best option behind the plate. And so I am very curious to see how much playing time he gets in the postseason here, especially because if you're going to have Giancarlo Stanton back, and with what you're paying him, he'd better be playing every single game, he's going to DH. So if Gary's not catching, he's not playing. And so I am curious to see how much Kyle Higashioka gets behind the plate in this postseason.
Yeah, no doubt. It'd be really interesting to see. It's just crazy to look at the plight of Gary Sanchez. We saw the way he came up 2017, came up like gangbusters, hitting the crap out of the ball. Just looked like he was going to be this perennial all-star, maybe probably the best catcher in the AL for years to come, potentially a Hall of Famer the way he started out. And to see the plight of it, just what's your overall reaction to see where he was when he first came up and to where he is now?
Yeah, I'm confused. He's the fastest player in American League history, not even just fastest catcher, fastest player in AL history to get to 100 home runs. So we know it's in there. Like, he has legit talent. There's a reason that the Yankees gave him $3 million as a 16-year-old all the way back in 2009 and have been really locked in. They've put up so much time and money into investing into Gary Sanchez as their catcher of the future. And as you mentioned, you look back at 2016, 2017, and you say, yeah, that's a lock. They've got their next Jorge Posada here. He's a right-handed hitting Jorge Posada with a rocket arm behind the plate. And so that's absolutely a guy you want to build around. And but at some point, you got to look at the numbers here and say, all right, who is the real Gary Sanchez? And I know he's had some injuries, and that has certainly been a factor here. And they're trying to work on a whole lot of different things with him, with the pitch framing to try and get him to improve him behind the plate. But I wonder if that has had some kind of effect where he's taking that into the batter's box with him, because we've seen flashes of it. I remember his line drive home run over the Green Monster at Fenway. The guy can still hit. It's in there. You don't hit 10 home runs by accident, but it's just the consistency is not there.
Yeah. I mean, you wonder if it's like a mental thing at some point. You were talking about how maybe his defensive, stuff behind the plate, maybe that's impacting him offensively. I mean, it's tough to get in his head, but
right. Yeah. I don't want to pretend that I can know what Gary's thinking, but I think that at some point you're taking in so much information and you're hearing from so many different voices. And I know that the catching coach, Tanner Swanson, has worked with him going back to January and February about this one knee down thing and pitch framing. And maybe it's just information overload at some point. Maybe some guys are just better when they see ball, hit ball, and they don't have everything going on in there. And, I mean, one of the greatest Yankee catchers of all time, Yogi Berra, said that. He said you can't get in the batter's box and think at the same time. You can't hit and think. You just got to see ball, hit ball. And I know that's a different era, but maybe that would work for Gary Sanchez.
Yeah, I think it's all dependent upon the player. I agree with what you said a lot. I think it could be a lot of information overload. I think that's just away the times here. I think there's just too much going on, too much for the brain to absorb. So, like you said, sometimes it's just easier to see ball, hit ball. We'll see how it plays out with Gary. Just want to continue to stick with the Yankees offense. This has kind of been a theme with the Yankees past couple of years. They're kind of a feast or famine team. Like, it's home run or nothing. And we've seen the past couple of postseasons that's really come to the forefront against the Red Sox, 2018, the ALCS last year. Do you think that's something the Yankees are cognizant of and have to be concerned about? Maybe change their approach at the plate, just not try and be all or nothing like we saw Saturday. They finally got the bats going. They got 3 home runs or 3 or 4. But do you think that's a concern going into the postseason?
I think that in the postseason, you're going to face elite pitching, and you're not going to have these tomato can pitching staffs to beat up on. And this year, you actually will have some of the weaker teams in there because you're getting 16 teams in the postseason.
Yeah.
But once you get past the first couple rounds, then you're going to see the real cream of the crop. And that's a situation where, for example, when they got down to Houston last year in the ALCS, you're facing Verlander, you're facing Cole, they were facing Charlie Morton. Like you're facing guys that it's going to be tough to string hits together against. And so, look, home runs are great. That's always going to be part of the Yankees DNA. That's a big part of what they do. But even Luke Voit was saying, sorry, there's a truck going by me here. Even Luke, sorry about that. But even Luke Voit was saying that, like, we're in the postseason, we're going to have to do things that the winning teams do. The way Tampa Bay can move runners, they can steal bases, they get a sac fly here and there. Like, those are the times that you can't just sit around and wait for the 3-run homer. And I think the Yankees have been guilty of that at times. They've been just thinking that a long ball can save them and get them back on top, and that doesn't always work. It's great when it works, but that's not always the case, and they're tougher to come by in October.
I want to switch gears to the pitching staff here, and let's just say, for argument's sake, Yankees get past the Indians here in the wild card round. I think starting pitching is going to be paramount in these, particularly the next two rounds, ALDS or Division Series, Championship Series, especially because no off days. That's just a huge wrinkle. I mean, I can't remember the last time that's been done. Obviously, it's because of the pandemic. They want to speed up the season, but I think starting pitching's going to be huge. You're not going to be able to, maximize your two best starting pitchers like the way you would get them game 1, game 4. I think they're going to be asked to do a lot more. Would you agree with that? Kind of save the bullpen since it's back-to-back games every day?
Yeah, and the good thing would be, because of the pandemic, you would think that they're rested and they have that kind of stamina. If you think back to opening day, quote unquote, was in July, then we're really kind of in the all-star break here. So guys should be ramped up and ready to go. I think that Garrett Cole said that recently. Like, he's feeling kind of like he would somewhere in July or August because he hasn't been going max effort for as long this year. So they should have those bullets in the tank. But what you said with the off days, that's huge, because I'll use the 2009 Yankees for an example. That year, they had 3 starting pitchers in the postseason. They had Sabathia, A.J. Burnett, and Andy Pettitte, and that was it. And they were able to make that work. They pitched some guys on short rest, but with the off days, they were able to get only those 3 starting pitchers in an entire postseason. And you can't do that now. You can't. The Yankees are going to have to lean on not just Garrett Cole and Masahiro Tanaka, but J-Hap's going to get a postseason start. Deivi Garcia could get a postseason start. He probably will. I think they're going to have to start Jordan Montgomery at some point. So, and that's the same for every single team throughout the league. If you're going to go all the way in this thing, you're going to really have to lean on your pitching staff. And that's where I think it's probably a good thing that you're going to have these expanded rosters. Teams are going to have 28 guys instead of the usual 25 or 26. So you'll have a few extra arms in the bullpen, but you're going to need those guys in the rotation to eat up some innings, because when we're talking about the 13th or 14th guy on the pitching staff, that's not a guy I want to pitch in my most important game of the year. So, I think you're going to push your starting pitchers farther. And if you come out to a big lead and you can mop up a little bit, then you'll do it and take your foot off the gas. But I think you really got to push because especially in a best of 3, best of 5, the first 2 rounds, those losses are huge. So you really got to win the games that you think you can win.
Definitely. Your thoughts on Deivi Garcia so far? Came up. He's looked really good with the exception of his start in Boston. Rebounded Saturday after a tough start in the outing. But what's your thoughts on him as a rookie? Just like 6 or 7 starts in the big leagues. He's going to be put on the pressure, like primetime postseason. I also think like maybe no fans in the crowd might be to his benefit. Maybe not. He might not feel that pressure of the postseason. But what's your thoughts on Deivi Garcia getting some big time innings here?
I think that is a great point. The fact that there will be no fans in the building is huge because for a kid who's 21 years old, and I don't sense that Deivi Garcia would be kind of flappable or broken by a crowd, but it's going to be different. Let's say, for argument's sake, that he does get the start in Game 3 in Cleveland. Like, if you envision Progressive Field, that place would be rocking in a do-or-die game, a best of 3. Like, you would have 50,000 people, 45,000 people, whatever that place holds, and it would be loud. And then this guy's got to warm up in that bullpen, listen to that, and then come out to the mound and pitch in the bottom of the first inning. We've seen it before. Guys have wilted under that kind of pressure. But now you put it in just an empty ballpark with the fake crowd noise, and it's just a different environment. I almost feel like he could kind of fool himself into thinking it's just another game, and he can go out and do what he does. And so I think that the start in Boston was an aberration for him. If you go back to summer camp, he did not look that great. I thought Clark Schmidt looked better than him, but
no doubt.
Somehow when the bell rang and the regular season started, he really clicked in, and he looked a lot better. And you saw where the talent is from. The curveball is great when he trusts it. There was one start, I believe it was in Buffalo, where he didn't trust it, or against the Blue Jays. And so when he's got that fastball curveball combination working, there's no doubt in my mind he can get through 5 or 6 innings against a playoff lineup. And one other thing here is that the Yankees have not faced these teams, with the exception of Tampa Bay, I guess. They haven't even seen them.
Yeah,
so,
that's a great point.
The amount of guys who, on, say, Cleveland or the White Sox, if they wind up playing them at some point, or whoever, Deivi Garcia, the only way they're going to have seen him is off video. And so I think it'll be kind of a mystery. And how many times have we seen it over the years where teams just say, oh, we hadn't seen that guy before, so, and that's why they struggle against him. So I think that starting a guy who almost, I hesitate to say this, but almost doesn't know any better. He's 21. He's barely pitched professionally at this point. He can just go out and dominate a lineup. So I won't be shocked at all if he can do that in the postseason for the Yanks.
That's a great point, too, how you almost forget these teams, they only played the teams in their division and in the other league, the counterpart. So, yeah, that's a very great point, how Indians have never seen him like – none of these other teams, I mean, outside the AL East, outside the Rays, Blue Jays, I've seen him. So,
right.
Yeah, great point. Didn't think about that. And we kind of alluded to it before, how everything's going to be on the road this postseason. And, well, this first series, it'll be in Progressive Field, Indians home park. But Yankees obviously had their struggles on the road. 11-18 on the road this season. Do you think that's something to be concerned about? Because it's kind of weird. It's not like they're facing getting heckled from the fans. The home team's not feeding off that energy from the home crowd this year. Do you think that's something to be concerned about? I think Aaron Boone kind of chalked it up to small sample size and aberration, but what are your thoughts on the road record?
Well, the Yankees always tend to be a better team at home anyway, and I think that most teams are better in their home ballpark. They're built for it, but I think that when you look at how they played away from Yankee Stadium, that is a concern to me because, look, the team that wins this postseason is going to have to find a way to win in an unfamiliar building, in those surroundings. And so, the fact that, and I'm thinking specifically of when they went up to Buffalo and struggled so much in that AAA ballpark up there, and the Blue Jays really kind of manhandled them and most of the time. And so, I think that's definitely a concern for me. The fact that, look, who knows what this season is really. I think that there is a small sample size. There is some kind of wild variance with it. But the truth of the matter is the Yankees have not played well when they're not in their home ballpark, when they're not in their own beds. And I think there's something to that. I think that even without the home field advantage, there's an advantage of just being home, knowing where your batting cage is, knowing where you're supposed to go to eat, where you go do your coronavirus testing, all that stuff. It's just been the strangest year. And I think that adding another wrinkle into it as far as being quarantined in a bubble hotel and all that, it's been a wild year. And I think that
to say the least,
some teams have definitely performed better with it than others. I think there's so many other factors other than just the baseball part of it that, that is definitely a concern to me that the Yankees have not seemed to lock it in when they're away from home. And so the team that wins the World Series is going to have to figure out a way to do it when they're not in their home city. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's just so weird. The Yankees are going to be on the West Coast. I mean, if they do get past the Indians, they'll have to play on the West Coast.
Right.
I just imagine, what that'll be like, playing playoff games in a neutral stadium, like the time difference and everything. Like you said, it's going to be tough, too, now that we're in a bubble format. Players are just going to be confined to going to their hotels, ballpark hotel, back and forth. Just what are your thoughts on that? I mean, I know you kind of like alluded to it, but it's just, I guess it's 2020 for lack of a better term.
Honestly, it doesn't sound like a whole lot of fun to me. And I think that some of these guys are definitely missing their families, being able around. Zach Britton was saying recently that he hasn't seen his wife and kids in months. And, they knew what they were signing up for. They understood that this was part of the deal, but that doesn't mean it's easy. And so I think there's a lot of that going on around the league. I know that, some of these guys can have their families and stuff come into the bubble with them, but that's a hassle, especially if you've got young kids and you're all going to cram into a hotel room for what could be weeks on end. And so this is definitely a challenge that I don't think any of us could have envisioned. I think that, look, if you have a rough game, these guys want to go down to the bar and have a couple beers. You go 0 for 4, you go have a beer and wash it away and come back the next day. You can't even do that. So I don't think this year – I don't think any of these guys are going to look back and say, wow, 2020, that was a fun year. I really enjoyed playing baseball that year. It's a job for these guys. They're trying to do the best they can in an impossible situation. I give credit to MLB and for the teams for getting through this, because – there were times, I'll be honest, I didn't think they were going to pull this off, especially when the Marlins had half the team go down, and the Cardinals, I think, played like one game in like 15 days. Like it was, how is this going to work? But here we are. They've made it to the postseason. I feel like the worst is behind them, and they somehow got a season in. That's awesome. But like I said, I don't think any of these players are going to look back and say, wow, let's do that again. That was a lot of fun,
Oh, of course. Yeah. Like we were saying before, hopefully there's just a one-year thing. I mean, I'm a little worried about like a second wave in the winter, but hopefully by next spring. I mean, yeah, that's a conversation for another day. But we kind of talked about it before. Just if the Yankees, if they do get past the Indians, what are you looking at in terms of biggest competition in the American League? If they beat the Indians, I think they play either the Rays or the Blue Jays. I'd like to see them play the Rays. It looked like there's a little bit of a rivalry there earlier in the season, especially with Chapman throwing at, I think it was Grosso on the Rays, and then Kevin Cash saying, we got a stable of arms, guys who throw 98. So I'd personally like to see that. What are your thoughts about a potential Yankees-Rays matchup?
Yeah, that would be a lot of fun. I think there's a lot of bad blood between those two teams, and I know they've tried to downplay it a little bit, but it's there. It's there under the surface, and in that case, it wasn't even below the surface. So, I think that that would have been the worst case scenario for the Yanks, because there was a chance yesterday they could have still wound up with the 8th seed and had to go to Tropicana Field to play a best of 3. I think that if you move that to a best of 5 and a neutral site out on the West Coast, the Yankees have a better chance there. But Tampa Bay, they are a team, as I said earlier, that can pretty much do it all. They're built on speed. They're built on contact hitting. They're built on pitching and defense. I mean, they are a complete organization top to bottom. They do a really good job. The one thing they don't do as well as the Yankees is slug the ball. But they can beat the Yankees in a lot of different ways. There's a reason they won 8 out of 10 against them this year. And there were, when it's all clicking, they run circles around the Yankees, and they make the Yankees look old and slow. So they have to find a way to counter that and not be such a station-to-station ball club, and they need to pitch and defend against that. It's tough. There's a reason that the Rays won the division. They were clearly the better team this year in the American League East, and I don't think a lot of us saw that coming. But, in a 60-game season, you kind of expected that these things were going to happen. Look, maybe if it wound up being 162, the Yankees would have gone on a second-half surge and come back to take the division, but it is what it is, and, you go on the 10 games we saw head-to-head, Tampa Bay was the better team head-to-head, and I don't think anybody can argue that. So, but as I said, you talk about with Gary Sanchez, everything hits reset right here, and so nobody has had an at-bat, nobody's played a game yet, and so now's the time that everybody's going to remember.
Yeah, and I saw, talking about the Rays, me being a Met fan, I saw firsthand just what kind of team this is. They're just a really like scrappy bunch. They don't have the household names. The guys are going to be perennial all-stars, but they're just like, they put the ball in play, like you said. They hit line drives, like Willie Adames, Brandon Lau, Randy Rosarena. Yeah, probably not, like I said, household names, but yeah, I'd love to see that.
They're fun to watch. Yeah, they're fun to watch, and Brandon Lau should be a household name because that guy is legit. He's good, and he's sneaky good. So, people should be talking about him. They're not, but he's a really good player. I've enjoyed watching him.
Oh, no doubt. And last thing I just want to get to, are you? It's just more personal question to you. Are you going on the road? Are you going to Cleveland?
I am not. No, we are. Yeah, it's going to be really odd to be covering a postseason game off the TV. But, for safety reasons, for financial reasons, I'm going to be at home. Yeah, it's really strange. Some of the reporters are going to Cleveland, but, we just didn't see a whole lot of value in having us fly all around the country because, look, there would be 16 of us at MLB.com, and we'd be checking into hotels, getting on planes. And when you don't have that face-to-face interaction, I didn't see and I agreed with it. It's strange. I would like to be at the game, but to get on a plane and go to Cleveland and stay in a hotel just so I can be on the same Zoom call I can do at home, it's hard to justify that. And so while I would love to be at the park and have that chance, look, if the Yankees go to the World Series, I think I'll go to Texas, but it's just the strangest year to know. Yesterday, for example, I was walking out of Yankee Stadium, and there's a chance that that's the last game I could see in person this year, even though the Yankees are going to the playoffs. And so I think it's been strange for everybody. Boone was saying that yesterday that he was walking out on his way Saturday. He left Yankee Stadium, and he knew his car was in the parking lot, and he could drive home to Connecticut to be with his family, but instead he had to go get on a bus and stay in a hotel in Midtown Manhattan. And it's just been the strangest, most bizarre year. And so I'm hoping the TV broadcast is good. I'll get to watch it the way the fans do. I'm hoping ESPN does a good job with it. But you definitely lose something by not being at the game, but we'll do the best we can.
Of course. And, yeah, just want to thank you again so much for coming on today for a few minutes, Bryan. Really appreciate it so much. Hope you enjoy the postseason. Even though I'm a Met fan, hope the Yankees make a good run. And like I said, yeah, thanks again, and really appreciate it. Hope to hear from you soon.
You got it. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. Have a good day.
You too. Bye.
And that'll do it for another episode of Basic Thoughtonomics. I'm your host, Chris Grosso, and been a while since we did an episode, so it felt good to get back on the grind there and get back out there. I want to thank Bryan again so much for coming on. You can follow him on Twitter and Instagram for all the latest Yankees news. His Twitter, Instagram handle at Bryan Hoch. I'll spell it for you. It's BryanHoch. I know it looks like it might be pronounced Hoch, but it's pronounced Hoch. So it rhymes with Coke, as he says in his Twitter bio. But I want to thank everyone else again for listening. Hope you guys, Yankee fans, hope you enjoy the playoffs, and hope you guys have a great rest of your week.